Akcaova is lead futurist at SURF, and Rasmus Benke-Aberg is team lead European Digital Education Hub. Let's welcome them. They would now like to give an insight into what future digital education might look like. But I have one little question before. We wait a little bit. How many times have you been at Future Festival?
For me, it's the second time.
The second time?
Yeah.
For me, it's the fourth time, actually.
Okay, so only beginning. But I am interested in what does lead futurist at SURF mean? Can you explain it to the audience, please?
Of course.
Thanks.
So SURF is the IT collaborative organization for higher education or education in general and research in the Netherlands. So what you have here at the university, like Eduroam, that's something that we provide for all the universities in the Netherlands. And in my role as a lead futurist, I am basically taking everybody in education and research along in thinking about potential futures for education and research. So all the things with technology, everything that's emerging, what could a future look like is basically what I'm trying to trigger with the people.
Yeah, great. I think I have said enough. The stage is yours.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, hello, everyone. Thanks a lot for inviting me. Very nice to be here. My name is Rasmus. I work for a specific initiative called the European Digital Education Hub, which I will tell you about in 1 second.
And my name is Akcaova, and we've basically also been introduced already by your host. So,
yeah, so let's start the presentation. There we are. Great. Let me first ask, how many of you have ever heard of the European Digital Education Hub? Hands up. Oh, we have a lot of work to do. Okay, too bad, but that's fine. I will just very briefly introduce it. Don't worry, I will not speak too much about it. So, the European Digital Education Hub is an initiative from the European Commission. It's about digital education in Europe. So, people, teachers, learners, policymakers, researchers, anyone interested in digital education can join this hub, and within this hub, we have a lot of different initiatives, and it's funded, as I said, by the European Commission. We have about 7,000 participants right now. Now, after this session, maybe we'll have 7,040, because all of you will, of course, register. That's very good. It's cross-sectoral in its scope, meaning that we not only work on university education, but also on school, vocational education, adult learning, and so on. So it's quite a broad initiative, and it started in February 2022, which means we're in our third year. Within this initiative, we have a couple of different activities. We have working groups, online working groups, or squads, and we'll tell you more about that in 1 second. We have community workshops, which are actually face-to-face workshops. We are the European Digital Education Hub, but it's also nice to meet people face-to-face, so we have some face-to-face workshops as well. We have publications, we have reports, we have articles on various topics related to digital education. We have webinars, and we have something called mini MOOCs, so massive online open courses for specifically on higher education interoperability. And if you think this is interesting, then there's another session in this afternoon with one of my colleagues on the topic of higher education interoperability. So feel free to check that one out if you are interested. But right now, I mentioned that we have working groups, online working groups, and we had a specific working group on the topic of future studies or future forecasting. And Gül will tell you all about that.
Thank you. So, one of the squads that we started is, well, I think we started last year, September. It's called Futuring. And, well, when we first got it, it was like, okay, but Rasmus, what do you mean futuring? What are we going to future? And with whom are we going to future? And we came to this question to explore what digital education could look like for 2040. And then he also said, like, oh, by the way, you have all these European countries participating, good luck with it. And I'm like, okay. So when doing futuring, you might also know futuring from foresight. Anyone familiar with futuring or foresight practices? Okay, we have more to do then, okay. Good. So when thinking about the future or doing foresight, you're actively taking time to think about what a future might look like, right? So you're thinking about an image or multiple images, and funny thing is when you think about futuring and the future, you always need to take into account your present and your past. So that's something that you always carry with you when thinking in the future. And it also makes that every one of us here has a different expectation from the future. So that even makes it more interesting. And also when I had a group of 20 to 30 people from all over Europe around the table, and we were like, okay, let's try to make something out of this now. So our approach when we first started, it was basically in the first phases, in the first couple of months, it was about discovery and defining to basically get a feeling, okay, what is part of this question and what's not part of this question? So how far are we going to take this? And then towards the end of it, of course, we had to deliver a report. So we had to basically develop and deliver the scenarios and also make sure that the scenarios land with people. We also developed stories that come with it. So unfortunately, we did say that the report would be published by now. It's not there yet, so you'll be having an exclusive insight in what you can expect.
But it will be published very soon. Promise.
Exactly. So this is the first time when we had the first online call. Someone was like, hey, let's make a group photo, because, yeah, of course, we were also one of the groups that had to do everything online. Not that we started in the period of lockdown, but basically because of all the differences and everybody being in different cities, meeting online was the easiest option. So this was this is a representation of the group. So we started. We first identified and scanned for what's going on around us. So we used the pastel model or steep model. Anyone familiar with the steep model, right? Where you look at social, demographical changes, ecological changes, economical changes, and everything. And we eventually selected 16, or identified 16 trends. And here you see already a top 6 that we made out of the ones that we found most impactful and highly relevant for education, or at least the ones that we wanted to work with. So you see the first one already is AI and Gen AI and the virtual assistants, followed by new skills that are required by the labor market. There's more attention to responsible use of technology, the shrinking population, so the demographical changes that we see due to birth rate, aging, migration. There's more attention to well-being and mental health care, and of course the pursuit that we have in Europe to be basically more inclusive economic growth. So hopefully no big surprises here, right? So what we did later, and after to get to the scenarios, is that we used these scenario archetypes by Jim Dater, where, well, normally when you would do scenarios, most of the time people will pick this most uncertain and most unpredictable trends to make this quadrant, right? And then work on the axes. But we thought, let's go for the archetypes so we have a more holistic and a systemic view on how the environment around us might change as well. So we went for those 4 archetypes where we have continuation, constraint or disciplined, decline and transformation. So the continuation is most of the time seen as an official future, so it's like what we have now, but more or less extrapolated and having a baseline towards the future. So no big changes there. When we think about constraint, it's like there are some regulations happening that make things maybe more difficult, and then we have to comply more to stuff. And when it comes to decline, most of the time it's related to collapse or vanishment, so something is disappearing. So often this decline is also seen as a doom scenario, like imagine Black Mirror episode times 10 or something. But in this case, when we talk about scenarios, we try to be neutral in those scenarios. So there is no such thing as a positive or negative scenario, because there is something positive and something negative for everyone in all of those scenarios. So I'm also very curious to see how the scenarios that we will present to you will resonate. So we'll ask questions about that after.
Yeah.
So the first one, the continuation. So as I said, nothing much, no big changes here, right? So it's still about personalization and education. It's lifelong learning. It's also the self-directed growth, as we described it here. So we will see even more immersive technologies, for example, going out there, more AI around us, where we also use those technologies for international collaborations. There's also a mentioning of highly personalized education, highly personalized learning. So we have AI that will help us with basically the questions, the content to make it our own, and also, of course, attention for sustainability around us. And then the constraint. So what we found as a constraint here is that there will be more accountability and more reasoning within education. So the campus environment, for example, will still be there, but it will be more, basically restricted, regulated, and we will be more mindful towards the environment and the nature. Inclusivity and diversity will become a norm, so now we talk about it, but then it will be basically there, and then we have to comply to that. And also the physical learning environment and the digital spaces are facilitating the effective learning. So it will be like in a hybrid situation around us. Moving on to you.
Yeah, and we have a third scenario called the end of human knowledge and digital education. Sounds maybe a little bit drastic, but what is included in this scenario? So in this scenario, we have a world in which AI is constantly generating new information, which is flooding the web, which is picked up by other AI tools, by other AI bots that pick up on this and generate new content. So it's just a lot of new, badly written AI content out there, which means it's kind of difficult for universities and other people, organizations, and regions and governments to deal with this. Because the legislative loopholes, as we call it, are there. The legislation cannot keep up. The legislation is always too little, too late, and it's just not possible to follow the very, very rapid AI developments. This has implications for science. Science is drowning in AI-driven either outright fraud or just badly AI-written science. And I think we can kind of start thinking about already now. I'm not saying we are there, but are we maybe seeing indications that this is starting to happening, badly AI-written science? Maybe, maybe not. In this scenario, it also gets more and more difficult to see what is possible, what is written by a human being and what is written by AI. I think right now, most of us would probably agree that there are some indications. You can very clearly see when something is obviously AI written, but it might be going towards a direction where this gets blurred and it gets more and more difficult to separate. And in this scenario, also the academic professors and staff, they use AI to create learning material. So this personalized touch on the learning material itself is not there anymore. It's just all badly AI-written stuff. So it's a quite dystopian one. And in this scenario, we also believe that many of the professors or people working in academia, they just get kind of bored of it and think that this is not so much interesting anymore. The AI has too much taken over the stuff they're working on. But we have a positive fourth transformative vision, our last scenario in this report. And here things look pretty decent. So we have very, very deep, profound changes in education, in all sectors of education, in all countries. Not only small incremental changes, but really deep changes all over the place. We have lots of new technologies, tools. For example, I think the first speaker there mentioned immersive learning, XR, VR, and so on. These things can really improve education. We have improved the gamification education strategies, so the students are more motivated, they are more engaged in their learning. We also have multi-modular access, meaning that education is split up into different modules, some which are face-to-face, some which are hybrid, some which are distance learning synchronous, some are distance learning asynchronous. So many, many different types of learning is possible, and of course, AI is making it possible to have a more personalized learning in these different modules. And the learning is then certified or approved with different very smart micro-credential certificates, so it's possible to get a little bit learning, a little bit there, and then putting it together into a nice package. So this is a very brief summary of the transformative vision. So again, we have 4 different scenarios that we looked into and that we're trying to speculate what the future might look like. We're not saying this is something that will happen, but these are the things that could happen. And in order to read more about them, we recommend you to read the report, which, as you said, will be published very, very soon. And now I'll hand the clicker back to you.
Thank you. So we presented 4 scenarios as a way to also start the conversation, right? So it's not that based on those 4 scenarios, we are providing recommendations to anyone, but it's more that we produce them to inspire people and then hopefully start a dialogue and start the conversation of what we think of those scenarios. Having said that, we also have a question to you. So our question would be, so we have 4 scenarios, and we are very curious to see if there are maybe any preferences here in the audience. So if you have listened to the 4 scenarios, I'm wondering who would give a preference to scenario 1, where we said no big changes, but just as it is now. And so no one, can I see hands of people who are like, hey, scenario 1, if everything is just steady as it is now, then I'm fine with that. Would you like to also mention why? Okay.
Fair enough.
Exactly. Scenario 2, which was constraint. Who would be happy or who would prefer scenario 2? Okay, no hands. Then scenario 3.
Where AI is taking over the whole world and the whole web is flooded by new AI stuff. Who is very interested in this scenario and expect all hands to rise? No, maybe not. Okay, but we do have one. One positive AI enthusiast. Very good. No, that means the last scenario, the one where we think that education is transformed and we take the kind of positive aspects of new technology, that this is something that looks pretty interesting. So hands up if you are in favor of this one. Okay, fine. So it looks like this is something that you would like to see of. Fair enough. That was maybe an easy question, but yeah.
Then, if most of the people give a preference to the last scenario, I'm also quite curious to hear actually why, right? So I would like to hear a student, like what is it that you would like to see different? Because we only had one person saying like, hey, let's just keep it as it is now. And most hands went up, well, like, hey, we want to change this education. Would anyone want to respond to that? What the changes that you might be looking for?
What are the changes you would like to see in 2040 when it comes to your education or the education around you with your students and friends and colleagues? What are the things that you would like to see changed? Anyone? Yeah.
Actually, I worked in industry for 5 years, and after that, came back PhD thank you. Doing my PhD in university. But the problem is most of things that you learn in university, it's not really useful. It's true because it's not possible to change all of the lessons every week, but the technology goes fast. Then, I don't know, it's possible to do that or not, but with AI, it's easier. For example, nowadays, I think using universities just for a certificate, not more. You know, you can learn better in YouTube with lots of Indian people in YouTube. I think it's the best scenario nowadays. If you want to learn, you know, if you need a certificate, university is fantastic. But about learning, I think no. Because of that, I think this way should change. The way you should decide, maybe.
Yeah. Can I reply?
Of course, yes.
I must reply, I'm a very big fan of YouTube videos with instructions. That's fantastic. I would not say it's equally good as getting a university education, but fair enough. The topic of university, what we teach at university and what is needed by the labor market is a super interesting topic. And it's something, there are many other sessions in this University Future Festival on this topic. I don't really have an answer what can be done right now, but if you look into the future and do future forecasting, future studies, trying to look at the long-term trends, of course, it might be possible to look at a little bit more what are the skills that the students will need in 5 years or 10 years or 15 years. But I also must say it's a super, super complicated topic. And at some point, I think we also have to recognize that the role of the university is not only to get you into the labor market as quickly as possible, but much broader than that. I hope you agree with that. Right? Anything to add?
No, nothing to add. I think we can wrap up and basically thank you for being here, thank you for listening, and...
But I think our moderator has some questions as well.
Yes, any questions? Yes, please.
Yes, I hope. Thank you for having you here, and thank you for your insight into a possible future. And my question is a question to you. Have you any questions to these guys here? We have also a mic there. Here, okay.
First of all, thank you for the information and your presentation. And I have a question on your vision number 2, the constraint, and the vision number 4, the transformative vision. Could you further explain the difference or the differences? Because maybe I didn't get it, but you were talking about diversity and environment in your vision number 2. And I'm just wondering how they are a topic, or in which way they are a topic in a transformative vision. I hope that you understand my question.
I think so. I'll try my best, and if not, please ask the question again. So in the second scenario, when we talked about constraints, is that basically where diversity and inclusion will be something that we measure on. So we can then, we'll measure like, hey, have we have a nice balance in, for example, gender? Do we have a nice balance when it comes to cultures or languages? So in the constrained one, there will be more steering towards that, for example, as well as steering on maybe the footprint and the carbon footprint and the power efficiency. In scenario 4, did you mention inclusivity or no? So the transformation part in scenario 4 is more like, like a radical shift. So things are completely turned upside down, and it's not presented as a way that technology solves every problem that we have, but at least we have a completely different approach and let go of the constraints that we have in the present. When we think about the scenario in scenario 4. Does that answer your question? And otherwise, we are here over the break as well, so happy to continue the conversation.
Thank you. Are there any questions, other questions from the audience, or also digital from the people in the chat?
There is
here in the front. Thank you.
Thank you very much for both of you. I am impressed by the scenarios, but my question is basically, if we all choose scenario 4, a transformative, what do you think is the first thing we should tackle? Because I do believe that we have to choose one of them and just not sit and watch one of the scenarios happening. But again, to the question, what is the most important thing that universities can contribute so this kind of scenario comes to, implementation? Because what we've seen are many things are already happening, micro-credentials, even with the systemic thinking. And I go back to the exercise you asked us in the beginning, closing our eyes, imagine we're in 1968, and see what's happening on that wall. And so I think there is a lot of transformation happening already, but again, the role of universities, what should we start with first so we can have the scenario come not a dream anymore, but reality? Thank you.
That's a good question, and it's almost like a frequently asked question now, but to be honest, my opinion doesn't matter. So, because I would like to ask actually the students, like, hey, what is it that you think? So when it comes to Rasmus, do you have an answer?
No, we agree that you should take all the difficult questions.
Oh, okay.
Rasmus, I would be interested in your personal opinion, because the frequently asked questions I can read up and I can ask the students. I work at the university, so I have a privilege to do that. But what do you personally think?
As a lead futurist.
Ooh.
No, I'm a techno-optimist by nature. I think that this scenario 4, and I realize it's a stupid question to say which one do you prefer when they're mentioned the way we did, but I still think that the idea of using technology to transform education is fundamentally positive. I think there are many things out there that could be very interesting. We mentioned some of them. Maybe change the modular way we are doing it. Maybe using AI a bit more, maybe not. Maybe also rethink how we can do distance education and combine it with different hybrid formats. I mean, the technological leaps since just the 5 years since Corona have been massive, and I think there are really good ways of improving education with technology. Now, should we still be careful doing it? Yes. Should we throw everything we have out the window and just starting giving iPads to all the kids? No. But in general, I think to use technology and also to start planning, and going back to the question we got over there, to look at, very difficult to say exactly how, but to look at what skills do the student need, not now, but in 5, 10, 15 years, that would be a pretty good starting point, I would say.
Yeah, and to add to that, not only the skills for in the labor market, but also the critical skills, like, the 21st century skills that we have also identified like 15 years ago, like critical thinking. So indeed, AI, I'm also a tech optimist, by the way, but I'm also coming with a caution like, okay, it's nice that all the technologies are out there, and there's a big push, of course, for the technologies. So now it's AI, and in a few years it will be quantum, and maybe it's already quantum. But, let's take a step back and think, where do we see where the technology makes sense to apply? Because there are still not, the use cases are still not defined, whether it's for quantum or for AI. What is it actually gaining us? So yes, efficiency is mentioned, but how do we define efficiency? Is it money-wise or is it time-wise? So there are big differences there. So yes, technology, be open, but be careful how and when and what you implement. And very much a big fan of 21st century skills for the critical thinking and understanding how the technology works, so that you can also relate to the answer it provides you, but also think critically like, okay, where is it coming from, and is it relevant, and then is it useful? And for that, you still need to have the knowledge that you learn in school.
Okay. Thank you for your personal view.
Good question, thank you.
I have one little question. You mentioned a report. Where does the audience find the report in future?
Yeah, this one I can reply. So we wrote the report within this European Digital Education Hub. If you Google, I think that's easiest. Google European Digital Education Hub, and you will find it there. You also have my email address there. I'm super happy to reply to any questions about this report or about the Digital Education Hub or about anything else. So find us there, and then we'll take it from there.
Thank you for having you today on stage. You stay in Braunschweig for today or directly?
For most of today.
Okay. Have the audience any kind of tip for them what they have to see in Braunschweig? Okay. Maybe you ask them in the networking area. Thank you.
Thank you very much.